Okay, I want to introduce you to Dawn Schneider. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay, she got serious about art. She went back to school for a BFA in sculpture. What's BFA?
Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Oh, okay. From the University of Montana. And she was working primarily in mosaic, and her current work looks similar to mosaic on paper. Putting bits of color together to create something beautiful gives me a feeling of control in these small spaces. She started using alcohol ink about 10 years ago while searching for something that would allow her to write on photo paper. While she paints on a larger scale with acrylic oil and watercolor, working as a framer at Michael's for the last few years has given her access to many media options on a daily basis. And she really enjoys the process, and her recent favorite has been to use alcohol ink markers on a variety of fine art papers. She loves the smooth blending that they produce and the incredible array of colors that are easily and somewhat affordable. She would answer any questions if you have any questions as well, on framing also. So I'm going to introduce Dawn.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me here. I'm really excited to do this. I've never done anything like this before. So I'm a little nervous, but I know my stuff, so
Don't worry about it.
I believe in that. Okay, so I brought this one as my first example of why I transitioned away from watercolor pens, because you can see how much this one has faded. And I just didn't like this because it started out, you know, as vibrant as these other ones here. And so, there we go. So I eventually found my way. This one is colored pencil, and I really like doing it that way because of the variety you get in the shading. However, I have carpal tunnel, and it's really hard for me to work that small and precise for very long. So when I went to alcohol markers, they have just this wonderful, smooth, like, ability for everything to just blend together. And I think it almost looks like velvet. It's so soft. And it's really easy to go down, unlike the colored pencils or even like the smaller fine-tip watercolor markers where you really just have to apply pressure, but this just kind of flows. So this is the one I'm working on most currently here. And then I do, these a lot are geometric designs that I do with a spirograph, because all of this work comes out of my work with my kids. And I like to play at art, and I like to play with them, and I like for them to think of art as play. And so this one was made with a spirograph. By here, I had kind of gotten a little bit tired of doing so many geometrics with the spirograph, and it's just more loose. So I think I'm kind of working in that direction, but I also am trying to work larger with the alcohol markers. I work in ink too, and that's easier, but like, this is how they look when they start. It's just a pencil sketch to begin with. And I had to go on Etsy and get a special spirograph set that has like the larger wheels to be able to make the bigger pictures, and it was really worth it. So I thought I would work a little bit on this one while I was here today. And I brought also all of my markers, and I brought some different paper samples, because that's part of what I like too, is the different feel you get on different papers. So I brought some mixed media and blue mixed media, and this is a 140 pound watercolor. This is a marker paper. This one is another watercolor. It's by Artist Loft, and it's 90 pounds. So I was hoping everybody would want to come up and play around a little bit when I'm done talking. That sounds like fun, because it's really nice. And then these are what I usually have more of these, but I didn't find any more to bring. But I kind of got worried about marker bodies and having to throw the marker bodies away every time they ran out. So I felt like that was a lot of waste. And I figured out that I can fill these. They come from Michael's work. And they have a really fine tip there. And you just pop the top off, pop the back off, and insert the tip like right into the fibrous stuff in the middle. It's kind of like, I don't know how you describe it, kind of a nylon cotton, long wick thing, and it just fills right up, and one of these bottles will fill pens for a really long time. And sometimes at work we have sales where they're buy one, get one half off, and they'll be like 3 in a set, and there are larger ones too. I think it's about $13 for a set of 3, and the larger ones I think are the same. So my process is usually to just look here and see what color speaks to me, and then I just grab it and I look for a place where I think it would work well, and then I just go. And sometimes I have to come back and tighten up my lines, of course, but you can see how easy it is to fill. And a lot of times with the watercolor markers, I would have to go over a space over and over and over and over again.
Do you typically work on a flat surface or up like you're doing now?
I always work flat, but
Okay.
this is a new thing for me, so
Yeah.
I may try to do it like this. I have a few easels at my house to keep things around so I can see like how things are going. I like to look at my work in my house until I know that it's done. And then so I'll keep going most of the time until it's fairly smooth. And then when I have one, I usually go in and do a couple of spots, and it's just wherever I feel like going at the moment. I feel like the work guides me, and then
I know you said that you'd be talking about your paper, but do you find this particular application causes the paper to buckle or anything like that?
no, I haven't had any problems with that.
Okay.
But a lot of the paper I use is thicker than this paper, or well, actually this is 98-pound mixed media.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the papers I use are thick enough to where they can handle it.
Okay.
And a lot of the watercolor papers give a different effect, but it kind of sucks up more of the ink than I prefer. But I do also like the effect it gives.
So have you ever used like a watercolor cold press? It's, a little rougher.
No, I haven't actually. Or is that a different? I just use what comes in like the notebooks that we have at work.
Yeah.
And that is cold press, is it?
I think it's hot press.
Hot press.
Yeah, you can get cold press or hot press,
Yeah.
but it's the rougher stuff. Cold press is
Okay.
more.
Is that, we have the arches there at work too, and it's really expensive, nice paper. Is that hot?
They come in both.
Oh, they come in both. Yeah, I'm gonna try that one day, but it never goes on sale. But it's
Wouldn't it leave a mat or a little,
Yeah, and I was thinking the texture.
the textures, yeah, would be different.
yeah, that's nice to get.
What weight is the paper?
This one is 98, and the mixed media is generally my favorite. And then I have in these samples here, they range from, I think, like 50 to 140.
Which do you prefer working on the most?
This is really my favorite, and this particular one comes in all different sizes. And I usually work somewhere between 9 by 12 and 16 by 20, just because it's easier on the table, and then being in framing, it's easier to have potential oopses that I can bring home and assemble on my own.
On this paper that you have laying on the table,
Yes.
and you've taped the edges, do you do that on all yours before you frame them?
I do not. That is the first time I've done it. But I noticed that the artwork I was taking in the framing department was much nicer when the edges have been taped.
Yeah.
And our head framer gets really anxious about uneven edges on artworks, and so I have come to understand that as long as you tape straight, then the edges are gonna be straight, and if you take them in to be framed, then it's gonna be framed straight. And most of the time it looks good anyway. She's just really a perfectionist. And so I figured, you know, I might as well try it. I think I'll probably like it. So these are dual tip markers here, and it's a chisel tip and a fine. There are also brush markers, which I like as well, but these are just kind of the ones that I'm choosing to work with right now. They give different effects, you know.
So, excuse me, the pen that you're using now, has that been refilled with alcohol ink or is that watercolor?
No, they're all alcohol ink. I do have a few watercolors here that I brought, like, in case anybody wanted to see the difference. And some of the mixed media that I do will have other things in it. So I don't know if you can tell. These are brush tip.
So that whole container of pens, that's all alcohol ink in those?
It is.
Did you buy them that way or did you fill them?
I bought them that way. And
Where
I
did you
refill
buy
them
them?
if they start to run out. I mean, we have them at work, but those are from Amazon, from a company called Tally Art, which I don't know much about them, but that they have the option to buy 150 unique colors for $49. Because the Copic markers at work, which are alcohol ink, are like $7.99 a piece. So even when they go on sale, they still put a hole in your pocket. And now that I have all the colors, I definitely don't have enough to fill, like there's not enough options in just the alcohol ink to fill all the colors, and they can get muddied up, you know. But that's all right. I'd rather do that than to have to throw away marker bodies all the time, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where do you get the fillers?
They are at Michael's in the aisle with the scrapbooking, I feel like. So when I first started with the alcohol markers, they came in just the ink pads, distress ink. Has anybody ever seen those?
Yeah.
And I was looking for a way to, I was printing pictures and looking for a way with my kids to use the part that I cut off the picture on like a guillotine paper cutter. So I would make a sheet of pictures, cut that, and then I noticed that this was stacking up and they were all bookmark shaped. And so I told my son, let's do something with these. Let's see what we can do. And we tried things, and the only thing that, nothing was working on like the photo paper. So I looked it up, I Googled it, this was like in 2012 probably, and it said alcohol ink. And so I looked for that and I found that on Amazon, and I bought like 3 colors in the pads and played with those for years and years and years, and then put them aside. And it was when I came back around through this desire for richer color that didn't fade, I came to them and I tried it. And I tried painting with the alcohol ink first, but it didn't give me enough control.
Was it because of the paper you were using?
That's a good question. You know, people have told me to use Yupo paper, and I have never tried that. Does anyone recommend?
U-Boat's paper, you have to be very patient because it takes forever to dry.
Really? It has the plastic in it, kind
But
of.
it works really well with alcohol.
It does. Okay.
But it also smears
Oh, until if it's not.
because it's so
completely
slippery.
Right.
I did work with it with acrylics, but I didn't try alcohol pens.
Yeah, that was where I first tried it, was alcohol.
Is that how you work with it?
Yeah,
Mm.
Did it hold to the paper better?
it did. It's just, I'm impatient And you know how, the whole drying thing.
That's why we went with acrylics.
And I don't like acrylics because they don't move.
We can use it all.
Do you have a method on your coloring, like the colors that you pick out? Are you just kinda, I'm gonna pick this, you don't have a pattern or anything?
No,
So you just decide within yourself, looking at the different color? You don't look at any hues or anything to match colors or anything?
No. And sometimes I get, not the best results, it's true. Like I have made some that I found way too bright, or some that just had colors that would clash. But there are so many spaces that I feel like if I tried to stick to a smaller color palette, that I would really have a hard time. Because even when I repeat and repeat and repeat, there's still so many spaces left. And I really like the variety of the color. I'm taking classes online all the time, and they all say to, have a standard color palette that you stick to. And that worries me because I don't do that. I don't think I could. Maybe at some point, but.
When you're using the felt tip or the whatever pins those are that have the alcohol ink in it, do you have to be careful? I notice you're not doing like the brown right next to the blue. Will it like when you're painting and they're wet, will they flow into each other? Do you have to be very careful to wait till they're dry before you put something next to it?
You don't. I haven't ever had any trouble with that.
Okay.
A lot of times if my lines get too far off, then I'll go back over with a gold or silver and kind of add that in as an element to kind of fuse the ones that don't go together well. Should I pass out some of these markers and papers? Does anybody want to? Yes, ma'am.
If you are, say, mostly done or a good part done, then you put a color in and find that you just don't like it at all, can you just paint black over it?
Yes, yep, definitely. Or another color that will blend, because the alcohol markers blend really well. So I do try to start light a lot of times if it's a space that I'm concerned with, and then I can get darker if I need to. And sometimes I will get really tripped up on a space in the beginning when I was doing all these, which remind me of quilt patterns. And at some point I would like to figure out how to make that into a quilt pattern. But the center would always, I was never sure how to make the center work for me. And that's part of the reason that I go with this method of just pick and go, because I'll look at, say, this space, and I'll say, that's a really prominent space, and it's kind of big, so it's gonna be seen. What color do I want that to be? And then my mind will go, no, just keep going. And then the next time I'll go back and say, oh, what is that color gonna be? Never mind, just keep going. And so as I do that more and more and I get everything filled in, then eventually that space tells me what it wants to be too.
So you don't start with the larger spaces and then work everything around it.
Right, unless something really draws me. A lot of mine are abstract landscapes. Like I call this one a floral. I'm not sure if you can see why, but this is a flower here. And then there's abstract stuff around it. But some of the ones that are landscapes have like a sun. And then once I have an area here that's just like this, like that could turn out to be a sun. And then I will do it yellow or orange because I know that's, and then sometimes I work like green down here because so that this could be grass, or blue up here. I'm gonna pass some of these around. Or I'll just pass them. Okay. Acrylics in process too. I haven't been working with oil very much lately at all. I hate to clean the brushes. I do. And that's another thing about this, is it's really convenient. Thank you. We went camping a lot when my kids were younger. And in camping, they would take all their art supplies and I would take all my art supplies. And we would wake up in the morning and, I would wake up and then go like sit by the river and art. And it was a lot easier to just have a bag of markers than to try to have paint and brushes and the.
When the demonstration's over, can I talk to you a minute about how to?
And they have samples for you that are affordable, and their stuff is pretty affordable too. But I like to get the samples because I don't know how it's going to turn out, and that's the stage I'm in right now. And they have so many different fabrics, and they can do wallpaper and stuff too.
What was the name of that again?
Spoon flower.
And is that online?
It is. And you can upload your own designs, and they have like a pattern making thing for you, so you don't have to have a great pattern. You can just put it in and it'll divide it up.
They'll create the drop if there's a drop in the
Yeah.
design.
Mm-hmm.
But with Spoonflower, one thing you have to be aware of is if you send in your own design and have them printed, and then you need some more, and you need to send the specific dimensions, because I've gotten an edition that's like a half, 3/4 of an inch off from the first one.
Right. I wondered if the color is consistent.
The color's consistent, it's just the size
Okay.
of the printing is different. So you need to be very specific if you need to reorder.
Have you done the wallpaper? Do you like the wallpaper? No?
No, I've just done pieces for quilts.
Oh, okay. And I gave one of these to Rita, and when she came into the shop, it's an enamel pin that I had made, and that's one of my pieces. It's about 11 by 14, and it's called Root Bound. And this one is a daffodil, and it's roots, and that was a fun thing to try. So I'm really interested in experimenting in all the different directions that I can while I have the opportunity to do that. And so if anybody has questions about how to make those, that was fun too. It was just a website, like enamelpens.com.
Do you sell your items too?
I'm working on it.
You go to different galleries?
Not yet, but I do have, I feel like, a big enough body of work where I could now. I'm just trying to figure out how.
So are you real good at frames, I guess, too? How to put paintings into frames?
Yep. Yeah, I did not, I started framing so that I could learn how to frame my art.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to do it on my own, and it's just hard. And like this one right here, I mean, these aren't really great frames. They're okay, but this one,
nice.
they are, thank you. This one right over here, that was before I was working at Michael's, and you can tell it's like a fake float. It just has the art smacked up against, like, that's probably the paper that was in the frame flipped over upside down.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, right. You have to come up with creative solutions.
So
Yes,
what
ma'am.
is the process for your prints? I know how you get it to the business that does that, but what process do they use to put that on fabric? And how expensive is it?
That is a good question. I don't know that. But the prices are fairly reasonable.
Depends on the fabric, doesn't
Yes, it does. And they have a wide variety of fabric too. And so if you're looking for something that's nicer, it's probably more than I would want to spend. But some of the, like the cheaper ones, I don't feel like they really come off as cheap. And so I'm still at the stage where I'm playing with all the samples mostly.
I'm wondering if it's like a transfer process.
I think,
Where, sometimes you could, not recently, but you could go to places and they would you can have a picture they would put it on transfer paper.
Right.
And then onto a t-shirt
Yes, or cake,
or whatever.
right?
Yeah.
Screen printing?
I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say that they inkjet print it,
Inkjet printing.
like on,
And what is the company that you send this to?
spoon flour.
Spoon Flour.
Yes, ma'am.
So are they color fast if you wash them?
I haven't watched them.
They are, yeah.
Good, good.
Spoon.
Good
Now, the
question.
first painting there, how is that different from the others? Is that a different media?
This one right here.
Yes.
This-
No, the one before, yeah.
This is one of my acrylic paintings.
Oh, it's just an acrylic painting.
Yep, and
With a brush and, color?
yeah, I just brought it, on canvas paper to kind of, contrast, you know.
Oh,
And I used to work really big in paintings, and now I'm kind of trying to bring that down to the size where I work here. And I do like to work small. Somebody asked me about process and working on the table. I think it's really important for me when I'm down here doing this to be able to, I'm gonna be on the wrong side of the camera for a minute, but, like I wanna be at the angle where the tip of my chisel goes right up against the curve. And I know you all probably know, being artists, that you can't get that from every direction. And so when you're working on the table, it's so much easier to just flip it around and get that sweet spot again right there where it just lines up and your wrist moves in that natural direction anyway. I get much better lines that way. And it's not like a fight to try to get, you
So
know.
flat surface does provide that flexibility
I have
to
never
move
done
your.
a wet surface. With the alcohol ink, would you wet it with water and then use it?
Well, no, I was just saying is that you can move your paper around or your, so that you can access from a certain direction by working on a flat surface
Yeah.
as opposed to what you have up here.
Right,
And you